Rob threw me a curve there. It says, because he lives, and I know that's not that song before the sermon, so I was waiting on that song. So I kept looking at Rob like, okay, is this the right time? Hey, welcome to Clear Creek. We're glad you're here, as I mumble out loud. It's good to be with you this morning, and I tell you what, if this is your first chance to be here, we're glad you're here. We would really like to spend some time with you after service. Hang around. We'd like to get to know you. If it's your first time in church, we've been waiting for you. We're expecting you. We want you to continue to be a part of the congregation here at Clear Creek.
I think we all need a pep talk. The world needs you to stop being boring. Yeah, you. Boring is easy. Everybody can be boring, but you're gooder than that. Life is not a game, people. Life isn't a cereal either. Well, it is a cereal. This is life, people. You got air coming through your nose. You got heartbeat. That means it's time to do something. A poem. Two roads diverged in the woods, and I took the road less traveled. It hurt, man! Really bad. Rocks, thorns, and glass. My parts broke. Wah! Not cool, Robert Frost. But what if there really were two paths? I want to be the one that leads to awesome. Will Michael Jordan have quit? Well, he did quit. No, he retired. Yeah, that's he retired. But before that, in high school, what if he quit when he didn't make the team? He would have never made Space Jam. And I love Space Jam. What will be your Space Jam? What will you create will make the world awesome? Nothing if you keep sitting there. That's why I'm talking to you today. This is your time. This is my time. It's our time. We can make every day better for each other. We were made to be awesome. Let's get out there. I don't know everything. I'm just a kid. But I do know this. It's everybody's duty to give the world a reason to dance. So get to it. Pep talk. Create something that will make the world awesome. Play ball.
It's your time, and it's my time, and it's time to be awesome. Man, that's a challenge in itself. But the kid president, if you've never seen him, he's on YouTube, and he's got some really cool things out there. But what he's saying, you know what? It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to do something. To really put your money where your mouth is. You know, we've been talking for over a year about Vision 2020 and how, we want to reach the people we call the black box. Those are de-churched, unchurched. And that's 80% of our area, 80% of our society. But it's going to take some sacrifice in order to do that. You want to do something? That's great. But that means that you really have to be all in. And it means financially as well. We've talked about, over the last several weeks, about a change of perception and how our perceptions have to be changed about whether or not we really are wealthy, and we've decided that we are. And we've changed our perception about the things that can happen to us when we're wealthy. But we need to understand that there has to be some intentionality when it comes to our wealth. This sermon's entitled The 5 P's of Life, and I learned these 5 P's when I was in college. And for some of you, there were actually 7 P's when you heard this. I took 2 of the P's out because the most important thing, the most important P in my preaching is PG. But it's poor planning promotes poor performance. Poor planning promotes poor performance. And when it comes to our wealth and how we use our wealth for God, especially when we're being obedient to God with what He demands first from our wealth, poor planning promotes poor performance. For many of you, every year at the wintertime, you go and you get a flu shot. And I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, though, everybody who had their flu shot, because I never take them. I'm allergic to them. But people have a flu shot, and what they're doing, and what happens with a flu shot is they're actually injecting you with a little bit of flu to build up your immunity so that when the flu comes, you won't get it. Now, this whole idea happened many years ago in the 1700s, and it was the idea of a man named Edward Jenner. Edward Jenner, you see his picture up there, or that's not his picture drawing. I'm not sure there is a picture of Edward Jenner. But Edward Jenner was a doctor during the smallpox outbreak in Europe. And what he did was he realized that everyone who had already had a disease called cowpox was immune to smallpox. Now, cowpox would make you really, really sick. Smallpox would kill you. And so what he decided to do is he would find people and he would inject them with the vaccine or inject them with the disease cowpox. And because what would happen is they would get sick with cowpox, but when smallpox came along, they became immune to it. I saw on Facebook, I think last week, one of the children in this congregation went to get their allergy tests done. I've been there. I know what the little bee stings up and down your arm and up and down your back. I know what that feels like. In high school, I took 15 shots a week for my allergies. I was allergic to grass, trees, molds, all that cool stuff. But what they were doing is they were actually injecting me with a little bit of that stuff in order to make me immune when I had a big amount. Now, I think our church, when it comes to doing something, when it comes to reaching the box, I'm afraid that sometimes we're infected with this disease. Andy Stanley calls it affluenza. Not influenza, affluenza. We're affluent, but we're really not sure what to do with it. And we need to know what the injection, what the cure for that is. And here's the cure. Brace yourself. It is faithful obedience. When it comes to our wealth, the cure for money getting in the way of our servanthood is faithful obedience. You know, I told you before in one of our lessons that Jesus talked about money more than he talked about heaven and hell combined. And I want us to turn to a passage in Scripture together in Luke chapter 21. In Luke chapter 21, Jesus talks about money. This is a real story. It's not a made-up story. This is not a parable. We have Jesus standing at worship. In verse 1 it says, and he looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And we're going to stop right there. I want to set this scene for you. When the people would go to the temple and they would worship, on their way out, there was these collection, basically they were like urns. And on their way out, they would give money. They would put their money, their alms, whatever they were going to give back to the church. We'll call it the church right now, but it was the temple. They would put that money in. And he was standing back watching people put money in this treasury. And we continue. And he saw a poor woman putting in 2 small copper coins. In some of your versions, it may say the widow's mite. And he said, truly I say to you, this poor woman put in more than all of them. For they all out of their surplus, and you might want to underline that word in Scripture, put into the offering, but she out of her poverty put in all that she had to live on. Jesus is watching this procession, and he's saying this. These other people, they're affluent. They've got a lot of stuff, and what they're giving back to God is they're giving back to God out of their surplus.